ONYE AFIA, proudly brought to you by Cutix PLC, exclusive quality since 1982.
In this part of the world, businesses are often built around people and not processes. So most times you see that the founder is the delivery man, the accountant, the manager, and even the product sometimes. So what happens is, when this founder dies, the business collapses like a house of cards. But what if we didn't do that? What if instead we built businesses that had systems, that had institutions that outlived us? Today on ONYE AFIA, we're going to be dissecting what it takes to build a legacy brand. And to help us do this is a person who has built a business that has weathered decades, expanded beyond this region, and is serving the nation as a whole. My guest today is Ambassador Nwosu. He is a co-founder of Cutix PLC and an embodiment of what it means to build legacy brands. We'll be back after the break and we'll pick up the conversation.
ONYE AFIA, proudly brought to you by Cutix PLC, exclusive quality since 1982.
Welcome back to ONYE AFIA. I'm Odera Collins, and today we're going to be exploring a very interesting topic, like I said earlier, what it means to build a legacy brand. For this region, this is a topic that is very dear to us, and my guest today is going to help us dissect this conversation. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
How are you doing?
Fine, and I'm glad to be here. And I am thrilled with the topic because it has been something that we have been looking for a way to propagate, at least within the Igbo, so that we can learn how to build legacies. In the past, some of our people built businesses. Once they die, it's gone.
It's gone.
But I will wait until we get to the necessary.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you. I like the enthusiasm for the conversation. Now, before we get into the issues that we have, first of all, what is a legacy brand?
A legacy brand, at least as we understood it when we were building Cutix, is to build a company that will sound like all the multinationals we keep hearing about, that will outlive us. When we are no longer there, these companies will go. The founder, Engineer Ajolo Zadike, who died last year, had always said that we need to build a multinational in Nigeria, the Nigerian base, but it will be spread all over the world, which is what he set out to do when he told me to come and work with him and do this as far back as 1982, early 82. So we decided that if we take a company, build it, bring in other Nigerians who will help to bring it up and also partake in the fortunes of this company, it will be better for the Nigerian society as a whole. And the legacy that we wanted to leave is that Nigerians can take a company from scratch, build it into a multinational, and even when they are not there, those companies will continue. We wanted to actually build more than Cutix, but Cutix is the first. Even though he's not here, I hope that I can at least help before I go. Start the second and the third and the fourth.
Okay, so what would you say is the foundation for building this? Because from the way you described it, there was intentionality. At the commencement of the business, there was intentionality. So what would you say is the foundation for building a business that would outlive, or rather, let's say, building a legacy business?
You build a legacy business. One, you can't build a legacy business if you don't believe in it. You must believe in it. And then you must be willing to take risk. We decided, when we started this thing was 1982. 40-something years ago. We had just got out of school in our very early 30s. And nobody in Nigeria in those days, I know you people were not there, but in Nigeria in those days, life was very brutish and very short. At 30-something, you probably would have died. But we said there must be a purpose to life. And when you fashion this purpose for life and you drive it, then you can achieve something that even when you are not there, people will remember it. He was marketing then for what was called NEPA.
Okay.
Then he was marketing. And while marketing in NEPA, he saw the need that cables, nobody was making them. Switch gears, nobody was making them. So he decided, why don't we? And cables are easy to make. Switch gears are easy to make. In fact, all these are part of an integrated electrical switchgear system. So why don't we start making them? Start with relatively simpler ones like feeder pillars, switch gears, cables, and then go into transformers and any other electrical products. So if you look at what eventually became our mission, it is based on that we want to be one of the top 3 in the electrical products business. One of the top 3 in the electrical products business. We made it broad enough. So the entire switchgear systems, we can cover them. We started with switchgears and cables. And we were going to do ring main units and transformers and other things. We haven't gotten there, but they are all part of the system. We've also, because of what we saw, we diverted slightly. We went into telecommunication cables. We went into overhead transmission lines. We went into automotive cables. But they are all still in the electrical products general category.
Oh, wow. Now, still on Cutix PLC, what is the difference between building for sustainability and building for survival? Because oftentimes you tend to see people start a business because, I can't get a job, or I didn't do this, I didn't do that. So let me just, it's always like a fallback plan, to set up a company, to set up something of my own, right? So what would you say is the difference between building for sustainability and building for survival?
Dedication is key. And you must always look at the larger goal. Stay disciplined. Make sacrifice. It is, I listen to UBA, their commercials. And I see one man that says, when you want to build something, you must be willing to give up something on Monday so that you can enjoy it on the following Sunday. So when you are building for sustainability, for legacy, you must be willing to sacrifice, especially when you are going for the first time, because everybody will say, you are going to be one of the pack. In a few years, you won't be around. But by staying committed, you will show that you are willing to make sacrifice. And it is that sacrifice and that dedication that will carry you in the first few years before people say, looks like these people are serious. And once they say that, the other thing that we had in mind when we were building Cutix was we wanted to make sure that the quality of our products was such that it would be exemplary. That was why when we were coining our payoff, we chose exclusive quality, which means that the quality of Cutix cables cannot be found elsewhere. At that time, most of the cables used here were Taiwan cables, and they were always cheating. And even our dealers told us, cheat like them. We said, no, we can't cheat. We must build a name, because it is that name that will sustain the company in the long run. And we refused. We even, at one point, we wanted to find out, why is Taiwan so cheap? We wrote them. We wrote one of the manufacturers in Taiwan to send us prices for standard cables. The prices they gave us were higher than what we were selling. But they also said, since you are ordering from Nigeria, we don't send this type of cables to Nigeria. These are the type of cables we send to Nigeria. And we saw that those cables were all substandard. The copper was not electrolytic. It wasn't 99% electrolytic. The PVC was too much, increasing the resistance. And that was why a lot of people who built their houses had the houses go up in flames.
Yes.
And we maintained our quality. Because we maintained our quality, we've been in business for 42 years. But it's not easy, because you have to go through teaching the people that quality matters. And I'm happy to say that the exclusive quality of Cutix has led to the Nigerian industrial standards recognizing us for about 25 years? Yes, we have gold award, we have silver. Do they have diamond? I don't know whether they have diamond, otherwise we would have won it. We have always maintained consistent quality. We have refused to cut corners. No, we stayed true to the cause. And we think we are beginning to reap the benefits. And the image and the name of Cutix is moving from cables to any other product that we get into. Everybody says, oh, it's Cutix, so it must be quality.
It must be quality. And you know, it's very commendable, because for me as a young Nigerian, if there's something we know is that we grow up, you know, we have this orientation that things made in Nigeria are not durable, are not strong. And then my parents are into building. And then I remember then when they would be taking quotations and having conversations with clients, they would always say, oh no, let's take the made in Nigeria wires. So now that we're having this conversation, I'm actually connecting the dots. And also they were talking about Cutix PLC, right?
Whenever you talk about Nigerian wires,
yes,
Cutix should be the top of it.
Exactly, because I remember the name. Now that we're talking, I'm remembering the name. You know, it's more like nostalgic, right? Now, because that's the reason why we're here. That's the elephant in the room. In your experience, this is over how many years now for Cutix PLC?
Well, we got incorporated 82, so 43 years.
43 years, right? And I'm sure that's ample time to understand the ecosystem in southeastern Nigeria. What would you say is the reason why it is difficult for us to build brands that outlive us?
Yeah, I think part of it is we had first generation entrepreneurs. Most of these first generation entrepreneurs made their money elsewhere. That is, most of the first generation entrepreneurs were not really educated. When you think of going back to Nnewi, Ekenedili Chukwu, Chidebere, to some extent, Ojukwu Transport. All of those people, there were people who probably were in standard 6 and they moved into trading, moved into transport, and made a lot of money. Their children were not really interested in that area, and they were not interested in bringing outsiders because they felt, I've labored, why should outsider? We tackled Cutix differently. In 1983, we had the initial placement. We had private placement and we brought in people. They were not my brothers. They were not the brothers of the founder, but they were friends. They were people at least we knew. They were friends. Then in 1986, the company had been on then for 5 years, 4 years, let's say. And we decided we'll go public, bring in the other Nigerians. Today we have, I don't know, but I'm sure it's in excess of 8,000 shareholders. We don't know most of them. The only people we do know. But we also, none of my children is working for the company. The founder only recently did one of his children join the company.
The company.
Yes, but there are standards and everybody keeps to the standards. And a lot of the people, Ada works for the company, but Ada comes from even a different town from Nnewi. Many, we have a board. I retired from the board in 2012 when I was appointed ambassador. I retired from the board. The person who took over as board chairman didn't even have shares in the company. But we knew him and we had seen another company he worked for. And we thought, okay, so he became chairman. After him, the other chairman was again not even a member of the private placement shareholders. He was not. In fact, I think he became a minimum shareholder. He had less than 1% after he became chairman. When I returned from Burundi in 2015, I became chairman again, and I have retired. But we've had about 4 or 5 chairmen. First one was the founder. Next one was myself. The others were not part of us at the beginning. The MDs, the founder was the MD, I was the second MD, the other MDs again were not, you see, so part of it was that he went to school in Unilag. From Unilag, he went to Harvard and then worked a little bit in the US before returning. I went to school, university in the US, did an MBA in the US. Later went to Harvard also. So we had the goal then that don't bring people in. If you bring them in just because they are your family, you may kill the organization. So right from the beginning, we emphasize on professionalism. And if you are a professional and you are brought in. If you perform, you will remain. If you don't perform, you will go. And we have maintained that. That is probably the difference between us and those who went before us. But I went to King's College, and we have a school song that says, if you fail, look closely, seek the reason why. Others went before you and attained the light. So we believe that those that are coming behind us can follow the footsteps that we have shown and also succeed, because we have gone before them. We haven't reached where we want to go, but we believe we are on that way. The essential thing is, if you look at our logo now, you see striving to build a thriving commonwealth. Commonwealth for everybody. Don't just build a wealth for yourself, but make sure that that wealth you are building has got to thrive. If it doesn't thrive, if your shareholders, the government, your distributors, if they are not benefiting, that company is likely to die quickly. But if everybody is benefiting, the company grows. In our factory, everybody around, we give them water supply, we give them power. So everybody around looks upon the company as part of their own. So if anybody comes there and wants to harass or do anything, you are going to end up fighting the whole population because they have taken that company as part of them. That was the picture that we tried to inculcate from day one. And maybe our forebearers, our fathers, didn't quite have that kind of perspective. And that was why it didn't quite work out. That when they left, they wanted to hand over to their children. Their children would say, no, I don't want to do this kind of a thing. I want to go and do something else. And they went. I studied in US. I did my secondary school in Lagos. But when we established the factory, we established the factory at Nnewi. And I went to Nnewi, and everybody said, how can you live in Nnewi? There's nothing there. I said, yes, but we have to build it so that next people will say, there is something there.
There is something here.
And we've had that philosophy of creating change. And when we create change, by our lifestyle, we show that change. And once you are doing that, maybe if you bring in 10 people, 8 people may fall by the wayside. But 2 people will and then you continue from there. You build another 2, and you are no longer 2, you are 4. And next time you'll be 10, and you go on like that.
A slow and steady race, I see. Yeah, but I see perseverance, and that's something we'll delve into more when we come back. We'll be going on a short break, and when we come back, we will continue the conversation proper. Welcome back. We are still on ONYE AFIA here on AFIA TV. We're having the conversation how to build a legacy brand, and we've been talking in depthly with our guest, Ambassador Odi Nwosu. Yes, the co-founder of Cutix Cables. Now, I want us to, quickly talk about founders' fear. And why I call it founders' fear is that oftentimes you see founders who do not want to. Most people will say, oh, they are closed-minded. They are not open-minded. They don't want to bring in new people into the business because they are scared that these people might not understand the soul of the business. Most people will tell you that every business has a soul. It has a house style. It has a spirit of the house, so to say, because they are scared that people would not understand how they operate and want to come in with new ideas. So for you, with your experience, first of all, how do you build an environment as a business owner, as a company owner, where new ideas are welcome, but at the same time, you keep the spirit of the house.
Yep. We try to do that by stating our vision, our mission, the company history, and we kept reinforcing the culture. We are not going to build a company, the same company in Switzerland as you would build in Nigeria. You have to have some things that are peculiar. I remember in those days before Japan started blossoming, Japan made rules that made it difficult for foreign companies to be competitive in Japan. So it made Japan easy. It made it easy for Japanese companies to blossom. So we hammered in the concept of the tradition and culture of our company. When the young bloods come out with their energy, we don't discourage them. We just tell them, study the culture of the company. When you study the culture of the company, then you will understand it. When you understand it, then you will believe in it. When you believe in it, then you commit. When you commit to it, you can bring in your ideas, but your ideas must fit to the culture of the company. You don't come in with a new idea and say, I'm going to throw out everything old. If everything old was bad, how did you exist? So you must start by acknowledging the past and then build your future. If you look at the charter of the company, we also have a company charter where we try to categorize and say founder, co-founder, initial shareholders, management, staff, public, distributors. We categorize each group that is critical to the company. So anything that you are doing, bear in mind that all these different stakeholders, different groups have got to be taken care of. So if you are coming up with an idea that somehow is going to run counter to the charter, counter to the vision, then we say, wait a minute. No. So if you want to sell something through, so we are also making very conscious effort. Founder is dead. I may soon go. So that those behind, the directors, the management, that they are all keen into these fundamental structures. The mission, the vision, the charter, the culture of the company. Once we can get people to understand this and buy into it, when you go, the company has taken a life of its own. Yes. And when the company tries to change, if anybody comes in and tries to change something very fundamental, the other groups will say, no. You can't do that.
Interesting.
That's part of the, if it's in politics, they will call it checks and balances.
Yeah, so still on, founders' fear. You spoke earlier about your educational background, the founder's educational background, right? Moving on to how you were interested in having professionals, oftentimes you would see that for some sole proprietors, some entrepreneurs here, they are very enclosed. They don't want to hand over the reins of the business to someone who's an outsider, maybe because they're not a member of their family, because they believe their children will succeed. First of all, what is the cause of that fear? I want to think it's fear. So what is the cause of it? And what do you have to say to, ndị Igbo na-ekili anyị kịta? What do you have to tell them about this? Because you think, oh, it just happened in the 80s, 70s. It's still prevalent now.
It still happens now. But like we said when we went public, having a leg of a cow is better than having a whole goat. So if you are not growing, if you are doing it all on your own, all the good ideas cannot be in your head. If you have some good ideas, somebody else has a good idea. If you bring that person in, we also say 2 heads are better than 1. So if you bring in more heads, somehow the challenge there is to synthesize the 10 heads so that they can work towards a common goal. Don't let that goal be a private goal. That goal should be a goal for the Commonwealth. That's why we said striving. Everybody is striving to build a thriving Commonwealth. Commonwealth for all of us. It's not only for the founder, the co-founder, the staff. It's for everybody. When you bring in people, they bring in ideas. These ideas, everybody sits down, discusses them on the board, management. We have a hierarchy. And then by the time we finish discussing them, then we would have a clear definition of the route we want to take. And it would have been well thought out. Everybody follows that route. And we believe that we will succeed. Now, for the people who want to hand it to their children, your child may not be well versed in how to carry other people along. So when he rams ideas down people's throat, and it's not a collective decision, they leave it to you to execute. When you are the only one executing it, it becomes more difficult. I believe that people are what create the difference in any organization. How you manage your people. They are your greatest assets. If you manage them well, you will succeed. If you can't manage them well, you will fail. Even if you think you are succeeding while you are alive, by the time you die, everything is gone. So the more people, various backgrounds that you can bring together early to understand the vision, the culture, the charter of the organization. When you are not there, those people will propagate that philosophy that you had. Once you have people who share your philosophy, when you go, yes, your child may not share your philosophy. In fact, your child may not work as hard because he believes this is mine anyway. But if you bring in outsiders, if they help to grow the business, your child will get his share of the business without killing the business. That's why I said the leg of a cow is bigger than the whole goat. So if you can get the leg of a big company, it's better than keeping your company small so that you can have complete control.
Interesting. Now to my next question, because you've spoken so much about people, professionalism, and the role they play in building a legacy brand. What would you say is the recipe? Because you've done this for over 40 years, over 4 decades. So that means you've seen generations come and go. What would you say is the recipe for hiring? Let me break it down, because oftentimes you see some founders, oh, ONYE AFIA, just bring in the person. Oh, I'm looking for a job. They just, throw you into the organization. What is the recipe for hiring? What is that process like?
We found out, and I believe this, your greatest advantage are the people who work for you. So if you want to have a successful organization, you have to be very careful with the people who work for you, especially with those in the highest levels. You must get them. If you bring them in, when Engineer Julius Odike was starting this, he says, I know Nwosu. I believe we can do this together. So let me go and discuss it with him. So he discussed it with me because I've known him for almost all his life, and he had known me for almost all my life. His father knew my father. They were friends. So there were family ties. But he also knew, there were some people he knew like that, but he also knew I have to find somebody with a thinking process that is similar to mine so that we can work together. And he knew my background. When he came to talk to me, because I always believe this, any business, two people discussing a business, each person is wondering, what is my, let's say, profit in this?
Mm-hmm.
The person who thinks they are in a vantage position wants something. You that is in a less vantage position, you also want something. If the person here is not giving you that thing, it's not going to work. And if you think that the person on the other side is not also not giving you, it's not going to work. When I left, when I joined him in Cutix, I was working for Benny Cement, multinational. I was to be purchasing manager. The way things go in Nigeria, if you are a purchasing manager, you are a multi-billionaire in making, because you buy everything overseas, you buy everything in Nigeria, you put 10% or 20 or 30 on your own, and you will be smiling all the way to the bank. But I left, and my Oga then, a white man, said, "Why are you leaving?" I said, "Because there's no future here. I'm just working for you. I'm not working for myself. And I want a company that I will partake in ownership." The man said, "Yeah, you will go there. This is a Nigerian company. You will fail in the next 1 year." And I said, "If I fail, I can start elsewhere. I'm still young, but I can start elsewhere." He says, "You'll be better off here." I said, "No, I'm going there because I know I'll be better off there." That kind of conversation went on with the white man. So when I joined Ajolo, I knew what I wanted. I was willing to sacrifice to get that thing that I wanted. So all founders should always think of the person who is willing to sacrifice. When they remember what the person is willing to sacrifice, they should equally be willing to match that sacrifice. Because when they are willing to match that sacrifice, then there will be synergy. The people can work together. They will cooperate because their lives have been sort of intertwined. That's what is key. When you then get that person, whatever agreement you and your top managers have, keep to it. Loyalty works both ways. If you are loyal to your top manager, your top manager will become loyal. If you are not loyal, if you had said this is what we'll do, and when this is done, you don't do the other one, your top manager will say, let me look for my own. So it must be reciprocated. You must not show greed
to
the detriment of your partner.
Of your partner.
Yes.
I'm glad you touched on loyalty, because that follows up to my next question. And it's about the times that we're in. Oftentimes when you converse with founders, they would quickly tell you that loyalty is hard to find, right? It's a problem. You don't have loyal members of staff. People are not loyal. People want to go. And it's bothering, right? What would you say, or how would you say it is the way to build a system where you have loyal employees? You said something now that you have to be loyal to your top manager, but generally, how do you build a system where people believe in the business, believe in it enough to be loyal to it?
If the head is rotten, the body is rotten. If at the top you show commitment, you show honesty, you show that you value some of these attributes, the rest of the people will take to it. You see, that's the problem with Nigeria anyway, because we see all our top political leaders, they tell you to do something and they don't do those things. They say sacrifice, but then when there is Christmas holiday, they give each other 20 million. And the rest of the people will say no. So whatever that you are doing on top, if you are not showing commitment, if you are not rewarding loyalty, if you are not rewarding performance, everybody will change. Even those who were willing to be loyal will start being disloyal. Those who are willing to perform will say, well, performance doesn't count. So it's something else that counts. And that's it. And the boat starts leaking from there. The top must show example of what they want the organization to be. At the beginning for Cutix, the pain, if there is pain, it went through. If there is enjoyment, it went through. There was not one person taking all the money and every other person is struggling. No. You must ensure that and a factory, a company is like a group of people living together. You can't tell your son that he won't eat while you are there eating a whole goat. No. Then your son is going to say, there must be something wrong. Either I'm not your son or there is something wrong in this place. But if there is no food and it is the father of the house that is denied food, instead, if there is little food, you give to the children first. Then the children will even say, no, come, let's eat this small one together. But if he's the one eating it, and that person will say, no, there's something wrong with this union called household. So you must show from the top that if there is sacrifice, it will go all the way. When there is value, it will go all the way.
Would you say that applies for discipline too?
Yes. When you are going to discipline anybody, you discipline everybody. If your child is working for the organization, if your in-law is working for the organization, once they step out of line, in fact, you should punish them more than you punish the outsider. Because once you punish them more, everybody whips in line. They say, if you can do this to his son or to his in-law or to his brother,
that means he will do more to me.
That means
I don't want to double.
Yes. So you must know that. And we have always applied it. We set out rules. They are written. So somebody will not say, I don't know. Once you go against the rules, the punishment is there. And you will get the punishment regardless. I remember when we were starting, somebody came and said, see, my daughter is your cousin. And she's going to be interviewed. I said, okay, no problem. When the interview results came out, she was rated 20%. So we didn't take her. Yeah. And the guy came and said, how can you take your cousin? I said, there were people who got 80%. And we had said, you need at least 70 to do the job. So how can I leave somebody who got 80 when I'm looking for 70 and go and take somebody who's going for 20? That business will die. It's a different thing if I'm looking for at least 70 and the person gets 70. Then I can say, because I know you.
And you did well.
Yeah, and you did well. I'll take you. But I can't take you if you get 20. No. So there are standards. And when you apply standards, you apply it across the board. You don't want to see anybody's face. That's what we did. And that, I believe, is what the current crop of managers are doing. Thank you. If we find out that that's not what they are doing, we will find a way to deal with that.
Thank you very much for how you've answered all the questions. Usually I would have like questions out of questions, but it's almost as if you've tackled every angle. Yes, you've tackled every angle. But before we go, because unfortunately we're coming to the end of today's episode. Before we go, what do you have to say to small business owners? Because, not everybody has the resources that you were availed to. I like to think of things realistically in the sense that certain people have certain privileges. Like you said, you schooled in the US, you went to Harvard, so of course it opened you up to tools. What do you have to say to small business owners who have a dream of building a business that would succeed them, outlive them?
Let's get something straight. Because I went to US and doesn't mean that I had a silver spoon.
Of course.
Okay.
No. It wasn't the silver spoon. It's just education, exposure.
Yes.
That's what we're talking about.
Okay, because when I was in school, I worked. I paid. And there was a time I was doing 3 jobs just to pay. But that aside, that's not what you want to know. Now, small businesses always formalize. From day one, start to formalize. Think about, I want this business to survive me. What do I have to do to survive? I have friends, even now, they will register. They will not even register. They will be running a business. They won't have a business name. Nothing. They just keep doing something. That's wrong. That's not right. And I keep telling people, start by formalizing your business. When you formalize your business, then in future, it's better for you.
Thank you very much. It's been a wonderful time because I feel like I've been fetching from a well of knowledge. Thank you so much. And on that note, we have come to the end of today's episode. You have heard it from the horse's mouth. Legacy is not what you build, but it's something you continue building. You have to develop a process for it.
Correct.
Yes. Until next time when I come your way again, this is ONYE AFIA on AFIA TV. I'm Odera Collins and it's bye for now.
ONYE AFIA, proudly brought to you by Cutix PLC, exclusive quality since 1982.